Hello, everyone, and welcome to a rootin' tootin' good time back on the Batman hiatus sessions, whatever it is. This is Bat Minute. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I am your other host, John Parker, and you're in the right place. If you think that toots are cute, we won't give you the boot.
Well, that's going to be a major topic of discussion. Actually, I think it's one of the various conversation points that this particular publication brings up. But yes, everyone, we're here to once again do another episode for our hiatus sessions before we get back to the main season. But we're joined today by a guest, as is our wont. We have a voice we've not heard in a hot minute. I don't think since Mask of the Phantasm.
Wow.
We once again have Brittany Simon with us on the mic.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Hey.
I thought of you the other week, actually, because I rewatched our most popular, the movie of our most popular episode. I rewatched Poison Ivy.
Oh, classic.
It was great. Although the person I was watching it with then said, "Oh, that was really good, actually. You mentioned sequels." I was like, "No. We're not watching them.
It's like you've never seen something swerve from like interesting concept directly into porn as quickly as the Poison Ivy franchise. But today, that's actually kind of I didn't think it would be tonally, thematically similar to Poison Ivy. But like, it kind of weirdly is in that like Poison Ivy seemed like it was like trash cinema from the outset. So it's like it's jailbait era Drew Barrymore, and it's an erotic thriller from the early 90s. Is it going to be just like things to get your dad going? Kind of thing. And then you watch it, and it's like it's very actually kind of a very interesting character study, and it's all about mostly Sarah Gilbert and her blatantly LGBT infatuation with her friend, even though they don't openly address it. But you watch it now, it's like that is what it is. It's not subtext; it's just the text.
I actually found that more. We're going to start talking about Poison Ivy. I actually found that aspect more interesting than if it was just overt.
Oh yeah. I think that there's something to be said about some things remaining like, you know, a little bit of like, well, you have to interpret these things, you know.
Yeah. Well, you're not allowed to do that these days, Niall.
Well, that's the thing then, because like there used to be the case with Interview with the Vampire, was just like, well, clearly these guys are it's a homosexual family that they've set up.
Yeah, they're raising a child together and everything.
Yeah, and then the new TV version is like, yeah, they're openly gay, and you're like, oh, so the subtext is gone. So I'm just watching gay vampire sitcom. Like,
it's still
okay.
good though. It's
still good, but it's just like, you don't get to feel superior. But I'm like, well, I can read between the lines.
Actually, I've read Anne Rice, and I know they're a couple. I know it. Yeah, there's something to be said about the difference between the two. I like both. I think as a queer person, like it's nice seeing it be so blunt and normalized, and then just as watching something sort of normalized, it's also nice that you don't have to say it. It's obvious. It's just like normal. It's like a weird catch-22. You want it to be so normal we don't have to talk about it, but then it's kind of nice to talk about it because it's so not normal and in some places still. So it's kind of yeah.
Well, even to that point, the main couple of this story, like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, they started off with like you watch the original episode that paired them up of the Batman animated series. And back then, it's all like, you know, the Joker pops into their safe house and is like, oh, haven't you been busy, little beavers? And it's all very, very subtextual, like, well, they're obviously a couple in this.
Yeah.
And now it is like Harley Quinn, the TV show, is like, it's all about their romance. And it's like the best version of them because it's like, yeah, we're just presenting you the love story. Yeah. Rather than they kind of like, well, you know, if you... I think that maybe they butter their toast on three sides, if you know what I mean. All this sort of under the table stuff now is just like, no, it's just an open love story.
And that's made them better. I think that's a really interesting sort of way to take the characters. I think it's improved them.
Well, and now it is just like the frustration of, because we've had the Margot Robbie Harley Quinn, who was with the Jared Leto, wasn't with the Jared Leto Joker at the end. That was the whole big thing, was about her separation from him. Then we have, of course, then Harley and the Joker again with Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix. And it's just like, the world feels ready. particularly now with the way that things are occurring in the US and stuff like that, it's like if we could get a Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy romance film, something that mainstream, but presenting something that as a completely normalized thing in culture at the moment, it feels like it would be like a breath of fresh air where you're like, look, we can still just do, like, it feels like things are going backwards, but if we just had this, it would be like, look, there you go, like a massive mainstream property presenting a normalized LGBT romance as the focus of it would be amazing.
You can't have that now. You can't have it now. I'm still angry that Disney are stopping, apparently, rumour, Pleakley from Lilo and Stitch. They're stopping him from dressing in drag.
Yeah.
That's the main character point.
It really is. It really is a disappointment. I wonder if a person or the animation could even pull it off. It's so good in the 2D animation. Like it's so good that I don't even know if they could pull it off. But along those lines of the normalizing of the romance, I actually appreciated that energy in this comic. Like I appreciated how like their relationship, the dynamic, the way they converse, the way they problem solve together. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it felt, it's a weird thing to say about a sort of silly fart comic, but it felt very real, the way they talk to each other, the way they fall out over what they're talking about, the farting, they fall out over it.
I don't know if you guys have had this conversation with a significant other, but this is a conversation you should have. Like, are we farting in front of each other? Like, this is a very important conversation.
And I do like the way that Harley just wants to not just do it, but she wants to just talk about it openly. Ivy's the one who's a little bit more like, no, don't bring that up. But she literally, I love the way this is literal throughout the comic. She like has amazing farts that smell of flowers.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get all, because we're not even entirely finished introducing what we're reviewing. Because as I was saying, like, Poison Ivy, the film, being so, seeming like it was going to be trash, and then it's actually very thoughtful. This, on the surface, is just like, what? And then by the end, you're like, but this is having like a genuinely quite like, not a serious discussion, but it is addressing like an issue. And it is also going into like, you could argue that it's talking about things about like, well, the way that women in particular would feel about bodily functions.
Yeah. And
their open portrayal of this, we're still living in a society where like, men can like, frat bros and stuff can openly fart and just chuckle, and everyone's like, oh, just mildly roll their eyes. But you don't get women farting in mainstream media. It's not, and there's little slight examples, but we'll get to them when we get to them. But of course, this is, the Harley Quinn Silent But Deadly Fartacular, which was announced late last year. Everybody thought it was a joke. And then they're like, it's coming for April Fool's Day. And they're like, yeah, it's going to be like, you're not actually making it. And then they made it. It's out. And it's like pretty decent for what it is.
Yeah, I'd say everybody, I mean, if you're listening, you've probably read it. But if not, read it. It's great.
Yeah. One aspect I want to address up front with it, because I don't know if you're aware of this, Brittany, because unfortunately we had to send you a digital version of this rather than a physical copy. But me and John both have physical copies. And this is a scratch and sniff.
Oh my God.
Like smell-o-vision comic.
Yeah.
Oh.
It actively, and I think like me and John might have had slightly varying experiences, but like I think I've seen some people review it and they're like, yeah, you hunt for the toots throughout. Whoa. And you scratch and there's like a little mild smell. And then mine was like, no, I think mine's busted. It's not doing that. And then I got to that big, like the dream sequence with James Joyce in the middle, and the stench pouring off the page. It was like I was quite a bit away from the comic, and I was like, Jesus Christ, and like I was like, this was going straight back in the Mylar bag afterwards. Like I don't want that smell lingering around. And also, it didn't even really smell of methane. It smelled more like just gasoline. It had a real thick, pungent gasoline smell. But then, John, I know you said you were concerned that yours wasn't smelly enough. Basically.
No, it's not smelly enough. I'm a sadist though. Maybe I'm not into it in the same way the writer is into this and the artist, because I think maybe there's a bit of a fetishistic thing going on there, but that's fine.
Well,
I wanted it to really, really stink though, just to punish me, and it didn't stink enough. I only could smell it on that one page.
Yeah.
And then only when I did rub it and lean in.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You talk about fetishistic. And that's a thing that's dogged this from the get-go.
Because on the surface, it comes across that way, right?
It does, and it's addressing. It doesn't name the fetish, but it is talking about the fetish quite openly. And the fact that it doesn't even say on the comic, because scratch and sniff is a thing that's just known. Like that's been around since the '60s. Dr. Scratch and Sniff from Animaniacs, as people might recall. But this is specifically says like, yes, rub and smell.
Yeah.
Which like that phrasing, even that makes it seem like. So not scratch, but rub and smell. It's very like rubbing. It's like, oh, that's a bit more sensuous than scratching. Although I'm sure there is also a scratch fetish.
Oh yeah, there is. There is.
I also have to apologize to you, Brittany, because I know like you are a content creator. We originally got you on for Batman Returns, the kinkiest of all the Batman films. And then I know you because you used to do content openly talking about the kink community. And I feel now you've like evolved and you've gone into like philosophy sphere, and like that's where your house is now, talking about like philosophical matters and like serious things. And every time when I come to invite you on, I'm like, let's get Brittany on to talk about something kinky. I'm dragging you back to old Brittany.
I still have my floggers, and I still have my leather. So, I mean, you might leave the kink scene, but does the kink scene leave you? It's really that's really what's going on here.
You bring the knowledge.
Yeah, I bring the knowledge. And also I will say, like, throughout this comic, I also had that same initial feeling of like, what is this? This is someone's fetish? Like, what's going on here? And then I was kind of like, oh, this is cute. Like, okay, it's like, because I actually really don't like farts. I think farts are gross. And so, like, I actually had one of those weird feelings where I was like, I hate this and I don't want to kink shame, but I don't like it. But then I did enjoy it by the end of the comic. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cute.
Well, maybe we should put that up front. Actually, as you, I was going to joke there too, Brittany. Like maybe like you read this and your eyebrow arched and you like looked at your husband like, okay, well, has this awoken something?
Oh no! We're the kind of girls that we don't fart in front of each other. It's a big rule. Like we're very like sensitive to. We're both neurodivergent, and I'm like smells are very. They'll stay with me all day, girl. I don't want to smell nothing. With peace and love, we have 3 bathrooms. Use one of them,
Yeah. No, I understand. I think it's been a while since I've been in a long-time relationship. Let's like, not get into the whole thing. But like, I feel I would be the same way because I'm just like, gross, just don't do that. But then, not to go off too much of a tangent already, but like, I remember, and I know you're a Sex and the City fan, Brittany, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was a kid, because I think it was the first time I'd ever seen it represented in media to like in this manner. I caught a random episode of Sex and the City when I was like 12 or something, and it had Carrie sitting on the bed, and she just lets one rip in front of Big, and it becomes like, and then that's like the crux of the episode is like, it's all a discussion about like, well, shouldn't couples be able to like this is an intimate relationship, we share everything. We should be able, like, we've been inside each other. Like, we've, you know, we swapped saliva. Why can't I pass gas? A normal human function. There's people out there who aren't even in relationships who will openly go to the bathroom in front of each other. Yeah. Like, I keep saying, I rewatched The Sopranos recently and was, like, stunned that there's a scene where Tony's going to the urinal in a nightclub and Johnny Sack, like, his friend, is just sitting on the toilet having a with the door line open, just smoking a cigarette, talking to him. And I'm like, I could never do that. But that's 2 very het men, like, in that scenario. And so, I remember that Sex and the City always stayed with me because, one, I couldn't believe it. Because even Sarah Jessica Parker is presented in kind of like, she's in like panties and a vest. She's in a kind of like, a very sexy way. The legs are very on display. But then, so she's slightly sexualized in the view of the camera, and then this comes out. And then the attitude of the episode is like, but why is this a problem? And, I don't remember how it resolved, but it did always stay with my mind.
It's one of the funniest episodes because the fart is like sort of accidental, but then she kind of internalizes that maybe her whole relationship is going to be over because she farted. But then it's like, why does this matter? And the end of the episode is basically any trouble you have in a marriage has nothing to do with whether or not you farted in front of your partner. It has to do with the communication. And that's what this whole comic ends up being about is communication, and consent and like taking the other person into consideration, which is, I think at the end of the day, what I'm concerned about. Does no one's nose work? I just feel like my nose is so good that's why smells are concerning. Like I know couples who have like two toilets inside the same bathroom. And I'm like,
Oh.
I don't know about that. Like, I don't know. Like, everyone's like peed in front of their girlfriends or something at a bar. Everyone's like walked into the bathroom at a girl. Like, that's not that weird. It's just the smell aspect for me that I'm like, that's when it gets weird. Like, I think that's what it is for me. So I'm always like, I don't know, maybe I grew up with eight brothers and like they would attack you with farts. And I'm like, please, for the
Oh,
love of
yeah.
God. Like, I don't know if you've ever been like locked in a car with a brother who's like, ha 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 ha. And then it's just like you're trapped in the car with his like stank. You're just like, it scars you. It really
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds horrendous. And I'm not bad with smells. Like I think because my nose it just doesn't work half the time. so I'm okay with it. I
I
don't
know
mind.
you've complained about that in the past, John, where I've been like, when this comic was en route to you, I was like, I wonder if John's actually going to smell this. Like, it might be that I'll walk into your house and be like, Jesus, what is that stench? It's like the comic's out the table, and you're like, yeah, man, it's busted. It doesn't work at all.
I know part of it is me. I have a medical problem. You know, I have to take medication every day for my sinuses. But yeah, even then, there's a limit, right? Because I'm someone. If you're in a really long-term relationship, I think it's fine. You know, again, though, it's consent and you discuss these things. But I think it's okay. You know, me and my ex-partner used to do that. You wouldn't consciously try and fart around each other.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, if it was going to happen, you're
Oh,
like,
sure. I mean, it's
yeah.
not immoral. I mean, even if you did it on purpose, it's not like an ethics issue, right? It's just a matter of, comfort. But I think you're right. There's a distinction there. Like, if you accidentally fart, like, what are you going to do about it? What are you gonna, what am I supposed to do about that? Like, obviously that's happened. It's just like the on purpose one is fascinating. Or couples who like kind of go to the restroom with the door open. I'm like, wow, we are sharing a lot here.
Yeah, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I could always, I'd have a pee like
Sure.
while she was like in the shower, but
Sure.
I wouldn't do the other
Yeah.
thing.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
That's not interesting to me at all. Like, but and I think this goes back to like sort of a like we said earlier. You're so intimate. You're inside somebody's body. We're so intimate with one another. We're in each other's minds. But there is like and again, no shame to anyone who participates because it's not about ethics. It's just about interesting levels of comfortable, like where your line is with comfort. I just couldn't imagine taking a shower where I feel like beautiful and clean, and then the dust or the musk of like you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
filling
Oh,
the
yeah.
room of the bathroom. I'm like, I want to feel clean
Yeah.
after a shower.
You don't want to get your like, like the scent of your like nice like flowery
Exactly.
body wash, and then all of a sudden just like the odor coming in from behind the curtain is like, no.
Yeah.
this is supposed to be like a sacred place, man.
Exactly.
Some places must be kept sacred, damn it.
Oh boy. It's like unfortunately topical. That's
Yeah. Oh god.
But to speak to that though, like we'll dive through the comic in like in a narrative sense. But I will also say to like hit back on the Sex and the City thing. So I tried looking up that episode because it's been obviously years since I've seen anything about it. I've noted that it may be an example of just the way society works. Nolan North, who plays Mr. Big, of course now since cancelled, Nolan North turned out to be a wrong'un. He says that episode is his favorite episode, and he thinks it's hilarious. And then Sarah Jessica Parker is apparently still mortified by it. Very, very embarrassed. But then that's going to like, well, Sarah Jessica Parker is very like, she's almost like the epitome because of Sex and the City of like, well, femininity and all the very stereotypical things people might associate with women, particularly because of the Sex and the City movies, which are so about like fashion and
But then weirdly, she was a character who helped change perceptions initially.
But I think that might be some of the complaints of the films, is that like the show was so progressive, and then some people are like, these films are taking it way back into like, what's this gonna sell, basically.
That's my view, and I'm someone, I only saw the movies once, but I felt that way myself. I was like, oh right, this is just it's like a chick flick now. Okay, you've kind of lost the point.
Going over to Abu Dhabi. Was it Abu Dhabi?
We don't speak of that. We don't speak of that movie.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. And I love Sex and the City. Like I've seen every episode probably 50 times. Like I love that show. No exaggeration. And the first movie I love. The second movie, the Abu Dhabi one, is just like, I don't know what happened there. I don't know who got paid. I don't know why this happened, but it was just offensive all around. It was just, I don't know. It was weird.
You got the vibe nobody actually wanted to be there.
Nobody.
Yeah. But in that though, just the fact that like, yeah, well, so the female star though is mortified by this thing, like, you know, a progressive episode for the time. I'm sure probably when that hit that week, that was probably like, whoa, because that's still the era of like Ally McBeal, where it's just like, it's about a lady's sex life. What the heck? We can't have this on TV. Rebel, rebel, rebel. But you still get. I remember like when the 2016 Ghostbusters, with like the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, with like the old lady Ghostbusters. When that came out, they had a queef joke in that. And that was a thing people were attacking everything about that movie for various reasons. Most of them, you know, what was understood as like just good old-fashioned sexism. Some of it just being the film was bad, which, you know, objectively it is. But also then people were like, oh, God, that's disgusting. That have a queef joke in there, whereas it was presented as like by all the comedians behind it have been like, no, it's funny though. It's just like a fart joke. And
okay, queefs are literally better than farts though. Queefs don't smell. Queefs are neutral. Queefs are just air that's been, you know what I mean? Like,
agree. Yeah, there's no lingering.
Yeah.
Gross kind of. Yeah.
You can always put that down in the as a go-to argument then, like in defense of Ghostbusters 2016. It's like, before we even get into it, let's just address that the queef did not smell. But yeah, again though, it's just that I think that, you know, you could tie it into like, you know, the patriarchy, if you will, and representations of like, you know, female bodies and stuff. Like I remember as like Broad City progressed, you'd really note. I don't think she ever talked about it publicly, but like you'd always notice the character of like Alana Glazer's character. She would just like all of a sudden be like, season 1 she had to have her armpit shaved. As the show progressed, no. And it was always, and her legs were always hairy and stuff like that. But she was always still in very sexy outfits. And this felt like her as a creator of the show, as being like a statement of like, I'm trying to normalize, we're trying to change perceptions of female bodies and stuff like that. And I feel weirdly that the Harley Quinn Fartacular, probably as it will be dismissed as a footnote in comics history, is in its way, like, you can argue that it's a fetish comic, and it is the writers and the writers and the creators behind this are expressing a fetishistic aspect that might be of interest to them. But I think it is also more just trying to address, well, shouldn't we progress to things being a bit more like easy on everybody?
That was the pleasant surprise with this. I wasn't expecting it. I thought, it's just going to be stupid fart jokes and maybe a bit weirdly kinky. And then it's like, no. It's a sweet love story, and it's dealing with body issues and all these kind of things. Yeah.
It's being like, can't we be more mature about this while also making like the silliest comic possibly imaginable?
Those two things can coexist. This is proof.
But yeah, actually, we'll try to go through the plot as it is. So basically, it opens with Harley and Ivy at home. I love actually the drawing, because this is done in a very cartoony style. Like obviously, comic art will vary from comic to comic. This is very much, the whole thing's very much like the Harley Quinn cartoon. Have you watched any of the Harley cartoon, Brittany?
Actually, I haven't, and I was wondering as I was reading the comic, is this the normal stylization? Is this different? Is it more animated? Or I actually am not familiar with the cartoon, so I'm interested to hear what you're about to explain.
Well, it's not animated. They don't look like this exactly, but it is very cartoony. It's actually a genuinely, like, I kind of opted out mid-season 4 because it felt like it kind of had run its course by that point, and you're just like, it's done. But the first, like, 3 seasons are really excellent. Not only in that, like, you're getting very silly humor, Kaylee Cuoco and, what's her name? The lady doing very deadpan Poison Ivy. Also, it's kind of like an Arbor Plaza energy Poison Ivy.
Listeners, this is a first. Niall has forgotten the name of an actor. This has never occurred.
Killing me now. So.
This is my realm. I don't know names, not you. You know everyone.
I'm gonna have to look it up because it's not. I have in my head Paget Brewster because I want to mention her later. She also did the voice of Poison Ivy in something different. but not in it's.
Edit out you looking it up and pretend you knew all along.
No, I'm not. Lake Bell. There you go.
There
I
you go.
googled it. Lake Bell is probably, and it's actually also genuinely like it's really zany in that like it's just a Gotham riddled with supervillains and they're all interacting and Clayface is there and he's like portrays as this grandiose actor and all this kind of thing. But then when it gets into like the season arcs, you're like these are genuinely really interesting stories that you could present 100% serious and it would be like a genuinely gripping story as well. So I highly recommend the Harley Quinn cartoon the first couple of years. And this also seems to me like this could have just been an episode of that show. This is the type of thing they would do. Like they had a Valentine's Day special where Bane's in it and he has the silly Tom Hardy Bane voice and he's always pretended as the butt of the jokes because he wants to be this big manly guy, but everyone undermines him and he's just a silly man who talks like this. And like he, for some reason, grows to be a giant, but he's also really horny. So it's like giant Bane going around like shagging buildings.
I was going to say, how's he going to, get some if he's giant? Yeah.
And then he sees there's a stadium where Brett Goldstein, the guy who played Roy Kent in Ted Lasso, he's doing a stand-up set there, but it's like a big giant sign of Brett Goldstein, and he's just like, "Oh, Brett Goldstein, my beloved," and goes over and it's that kind of humor.
This might be a little bit of an ignorant question, but could they make an animated cartoon of a farting episode? Like, would it pass? Like, who's the audience watching this show? Is this comic for kids? Is it for adults? Is it for all ages? What's the demographic here?
Well, I would say this comic in particular, it does say in the front 13 plus, which I guess is like, well, it's not for little kids. Some would argue, I think, though, because again, there was outrage about this when it came out. Like people were going like, how dare they? What was it? The comic sphere is always outraged about it. They had the whole controversy a couple of years ago where they had like a silly panel about the Joker being pregnant. And that caused a huge uproar on YouTube.
But why does that make sense to me? I feel like out of all the people who could be pregnant, it is the Joker.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Like I could fully imagine him kind of just rolling with it as well.
Yeah.
Being like, I'm pregnant. Like, okay.
It was also at the height of the culture war, all that YouTube hoopla where all these guys were complaining about. All the 40-year-old chuds were complaining about everything being woke.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't changed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm still complaining about it.
I think they're still complaining. I think more and more people now have realized, like, oh, this is like a grift. This is like, you'll just be outraged by literally anything because people love negativity. So
Well, it generates clicks and views.
So now it's moved from Thunderbolts is going to flop. Oh, it flopped. That's too woke. What's coming like, oh, Fantastic Four is doing me. Oh, it's going to be a stinker. And then they just, and then do 50 videos about that.
No, but what happens in some avenues here is like, I'm a gamer. And whenever there's a new game coming out, they all complain, it's woke. But then when the game is a success, they miraculously pretend that they never said that. Like
totally.
Baldur's Gate 3, one of the biggest games of the last few years. That is as woke as you can possibly get. And they all complained about it beforehand. But then, because it was the biggest success imaginable, now they all go, oh, this new Dragon Age is woke, unlike Baldur's Gate 3. And it's like, you were the one complaining about it.
Yeah. It really feels made up at this point. Like, find something to do with your time. But you're right. Like, the clickbait works. People get mad. They click on it, which is so frustrating, I think, as a content creator. You're just like, I would really like to have a discussion about these things in a real way. But they're appealing to that white audience. So I was curious, like, what the outrage might have been like because of this comic. And I wonder if it is because it's about two girls. Because if it was more about like masculine men or like goofy men, like a funny comic duo farting, would it have been better received? Because it's like guys farting is funny, but because it's two girls who are hot, it's like, is it automatically fetishized because they're pretty? I don't know.
Well, I think there is very fetishy shots in it though, because there's parts where she's in like that black lycra bodysuit and she's like leaning over to like get a stapler to try to staple her butt shut.
Yeah.
And her butt, it's drawn very like lovingly.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it feels like that is like, and it does have a vibe where you could go like, yeah, they're working out some, like some stuff. Like it could be like it's bordering on Quentin Tarantino foot stuff. Like
You could argue, and I'm not necessarily saying this is my argument, but you could argue that needs to happen in order to then sort of break the stereotype by having that butt then fart.
Yeah. Or just the fact that butt is farting is then like, isn't that hot? You know, like
or you could also view it that way.
But there's also like it's a like kind of in tying everything together there. Are you folks familiar with Sinners, the big film that's out currently?
Familiar, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I saw the trailer and was like, I'm not interested. And then everyone went, oh my God, you need to see this. I was like, right, okay.
I was interested from the get-go. Excellent film. And it's very deep, very dense. It's talking about a lot of different stuff. And it's more layered than it even initially appears. Like I've seen it twice now in the theater. And I've been like, I want to go back for a third time because like, there's a lot to take in with this. And not in a kind of like, oh, it's so ponderous and, you know, pretentious art film kind of way. It's like it's just an entertaining film, but it's got so many different themes going on. But also in it, it's got some very sexy scenes, and there's a bit where several references near constantly that people have pointed out since, where because it's written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who did Creed and Black Panther movies, stuff like that, and he talks where the characters talk about eating pussy basically and enjoying eating pussy. And it's always the go-to sexual activity is eating pussy. And then there's a bit where Haley Steinfeld spits in Michael B. Jordan's mouth. Well, and it's very, very sexually presented.
Oh, it's done in like an erotic way.
They're literally in the middle of sex and she's drooling. And he's like, what's that? And she's like, open your mouth. And she's like, just spits, just drooling openly into his mouth.
In a movie.
in the movie. And people now are going like, is Ryan Coogler... Like, is he working through... In the same way people might be like, oh, the writer and the artist of this are maybe, like, working through their own kinks or getting it out there. People like... And all the stuff going on in Sinners. Is it potentially that Ryan Coogler has a thing for going down on his ladies? And also, does he have, like, a spit fetish and stuff as well? Because
I get that. I understand the appeal of that over a fart.
And then also... But is that, like... If the writers of this are fart fetishists... And Ryan Coogler does have those things. And Quentin Tarantino's in... The Tarantino feet thing is a bit weird because he is making people do it. And you'd have to openly address if they're comfortable with that.
Well, and it's not breaking any kind of boundaries or changing people's minds like this comic even is trying to do. That's just, look at these feet. Yeah. Look at these feet.
Yeah. But, like, don't the artists have a right to do that as well? Like,
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just be like, this is a... It's a known fetish. It's called like eproctophilia, because it gets like proctologists, eproctophilia, and it's like shouldn't it be like in current year should we not be openly talking about? Should artists not be allowed to represent this if that's their thing?
I can. Well, hold on. I want to say, like, in terms of consent, because this is a new thing on film sets, having like an intimacy director or an intimacy person there for scenes that are gonna possibly violate people's consent. What's interesting is, isn't kink inherently always active? And I don't think so. I think you can make artistic films about kink in a very intellectual, academic way without it needing to be something you're actively watching to participate in, which was a controversy that happened in Nickelodeon with I can't remember his name right now.
But Dan Snyder.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Who was making the children do things. So I think the dilemma we're going to have here is, how do we make sure that actors and actresses are in a position of making art that isn't objectifying them for the sake of the director, writer, producer, whatever.
Yes.
And I think that's always the concern we're going to have, which is why I also appreciated the consent element of this comic between Harley and Ivy. Just talking about people's boundaries and consent, because ultimately, even though you're comfortable with it, doesn't mean other people are. And also other people aren't there to fulfill your fantasies. Other people, like actors and actresses, I hope to some extent come to do a job that expresses their art and the seriousness they have attached to it, at least at a film at this caliber for Sinners. And I'm assuming that that there should be some sort of like seriousness, I think, in the work that isn't directly connected to the kink. I just think people think kink is always active, and I just don't think that's true. Like, because I do think it adds like I'm going to use the word creepy, like a creepy element because these men over the years have taken advantage of actors and actresses to fulfill their kinks, and I just don't want that to be the theme. But I think there is a way to be professional about expressing kinks in film, like everything everywhere all at once. There's like kink expressed in the film that I thought was really really done tastefully, honestly, funny, humorous, digestible, and I think it was like an easy way for the audience to have fun with it rather than feeling like, ooh, something nefarious is happening.
Yeah. I mean, even like the first our first conversation, Brittany, when you came on for Batman Returns, Catwoman on top of Batman licking his face, and there's no way the full-grown adults making that film that everyone wasn't aware of, like, oh, this is kinky as
yeah. Definitely.
But does that also mean that Tim Burton was like, yeah, that's really hot, or like he could have been like, no, I'm just presenting these characters, and that's their kink, and it is very much invested in that kind of thing,
It's difficult because those things are very different, and it's hard to know the intent, I suppose.
It's still like that's like I've mentioned it before as well, where because have you seen the Batman, Brittany, the recent one? Well, that was a couple of years back now, but the Robert Pattinson.
No, you know what? I really missed out. I've been in my anime arc right now, so I've been away from film for a bit, and I really got to get back into it because I heard it was great. Even my partner was like, "Oh yeah, you should see that. It's pretty good." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm behind. I'm really behind."
Me and John could both fully verify, absolutely excellent, and also the Penguin spin-off show, brilliant.
Oh
well.
yeah, see, I wanted to see that as well. I'm really eager to get back into film.
But
don't worry, I'm always like 2 years behind everyone else.
But there's one of the big things I took away from the Batman is like, oh, it's kind of bringing a bit more of a kinky element back into it that was previously sort of gone from because Nolan's version, the Chris Nolan trilogy, great as it is very like, no, it's quite clean cut. We're taking everything. It's very serious and gray and stuff like that. And it's like there's no. It's just like, isn't this guy kind of nuts for what he's doing and things like that. Even though it created sort of erstwhile sex icon of Heath Ledger's Joker, because I know a lot of people who were into that Joker, like in that way. But like there's elements, there's like the one scene that always stuck out to me in particular, and it'd be one of those ones where like, oh, so Catwoman and Batman in Batman Returns, that's intentionally kinky and sexy because like her licking his face and they're both in tight rubber and stuff like that. There's no way you can't like see what they're doing. But there's a bit in The Batman where they're both trying to hide, and Catwoman goes to like run away, and Batman grabs her, puts his hand over her mouth, and then they both like go behind a corner, and the music kind of turns, and it gets into this very soft music, and she's struggling, and then eventually she just slowly stops, and it almost seems like she's enjoying it for a second, and I'm watching that going like, what's this trying to say? Like And that's just a scene that's there, and it goes on for like, some people might not notice it, but it really stuck out to me. And it's like maybe 15 seconds of the film. Well, but we do the films minute by minute, so
yeah.
I think all these things are sticking out to me now. But that would be a version where like, was that intentional by any of the performers?
Assume,
or
right?
was it Matt Reeves going like, yeah, I'm into this. I don't know if the performers are aware, but then him having to like talk them through that scene. You can imagine behind the camera, he's going like, oh, so now you're slowing down. Now you're intimate. Now it's sensuous. Now he's got you and he's restricting you and stuff like that. Like we don't know. You don't know in that scenario. Whereas, again, that could go into whole breaching of performers' rights if they don't know and consent. Whereas at least the Harley Quinn fart comic is like, well, they're pictures on a page, and it's not as if the audience hasn't been given due warning.
It's all over the front. You are told what is in this comic.
The cover is literally like it's shooting her out of her ass, like it's like out of a fire extinguisher. Like it's like you gotta know what you're getting into here.
I think maybe the cover is part of the reason as well. People think, oh, is this like a fetish thing, because she's presented very sexually there. Like I think the outfit, I know it's like a magician's assistant kind of look, but I don't know, just the angle and the way the legs are drawn and everything. But then she's farting, so it's like, oh, that's kind of a fun twist on the
yeah
She's got also her facial expressions got a cute goofiness to it. Like she's a bit goofy, which allows there to be sort of a balance, I think, between the aesthetic and also I was trying to view it as like a queer person and as like a woman. I was trying to how do I feel about it? And I think I really liked it. Like I think isolated, I thought it was really cute. I don't even like farts. So that part was like probably the grossest part of it was the fart details. But I think overall, I was just like, oh, I didn't I try to view things from a critical lens and I tried to ask myself like where's the misogyny, where is it, like I'm trying to find it. And I think if I read it a few times I could probably be critical of something, but overall first read nothing really stood out to me other than I thought that it was like, okay, this is kind of cute. I think in my head anyone could have written it. I actually don't know, did a man or a woman write it? Like who's involved in this? What are do we know these things? I assume you guys do.
Yeah, it's like all female talent.
Oh, great.
Female writer, and it was commissioned by, I think it has her name on the front because they did like it might be in the opening. Yeah, Marie Javins, because she's like one of the sort of higher ups in DC now, and she apparently very rarely will put her name prominently over a thing like that. But she's openly very like happily talked about like this comic at conventions and stuff, and she's been like, the higher up I get, the more like I wonder, will they allow me to do more fart comics? But she's kind of like doing tongue in cheek and stuff because everyone's like, oh, but the fart comic.
That's great. I was wondering that too, and I didn't think to check it. I have all my notes here, but I didn't even think to check. But I was getting like there's like a vibe sometimes when I watch even like an anime. I'm like, who wrote this? Was this a man or a woman? What, or was it a non-binary person? Like, what's the gender persuasion? What's the influence? What's the thought process? Because whether we like it or not, and going back to the director, kink, producer question, ultimately, as artists, as creatives, our footprint is in our work. Like, it is a part of us, even if it's not about us. And so I feel like I saw something here, maybe.
Yeah, I think you do sort of get a sense, even with a comic, when you're reading it, you can kind of tell who's worked on it. I think there's a feeling that comes across.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and
people know a Frank Miller comic from 10 miles away.
Yeah. And there's like subtle things in this that made me think, this is maybe like a female team working on it. Like there's a bit sort of towards the end where Harley has to strip off. Yeah, because she's, she's wearing this suit she has to remove, and I felt like the small detail of her underwear being not sexy. You know what I mean? Because it would be so easy to give Harley like sexy underwear, and they were like, no, she's got very practical underwear on actually.
Yeah, I found that relatable. I'm a very boxers girly, so I have boxers all the time. And when I saw her underwear, I was like, relatable. I appreciated that.
Because why would she be wearing, I don't know, like a thong and
right?
Oh, because it's Harley Quinn. No,
that shot of because she has it's when like I know we've been trying to go through it like plot point by plot point, but I guess we might as well just let's just go on
now if you want, because
no, but just gonna because that's the part where Plastic Man, who's like acted as her overalls basically.
He's incredible in this.
He has the one part where I was just like, no, that's disgusting. But we'll get to that in a moment. But when he melts off her basically. And it reveals, like, oh, no, she's like, oh, why am I wait? Oh, that's right, I've got a brassiere on. I noted that, because you even see at the back, probably been the digital copy you have, Brittany, at the very bottom, there's an advert for the Harley Quinn cartoon. And that's made by men. As good as it is made by men. But notably, Harley's just day-to-day outfit in that is less than when she's just in her bra and, like, boxers. And this is like she's
that's
wearing.
That's why this was a nice change, I think.
And it's also a notable thing that like it's a little bit of an everything's connected. In that it mentioned there earlier about like there's a scene of her bending over, and her butt's presented in a very sort of sexy manner, and I don't think people really blinked an eye at that. And it's like, oh, it's female writer, female artist, but a couple of years ago there was the DC animated movie Batman versus Harley Quinn, and there was a huge uproar because that was made by Bruce Timm, one of the creators of Batman the animated series. And there's a bit where the scene spiraled in, like it was a massive controversy because she has Nightwing tied to a bed, and it's all fun flirty talk, but she bends over, and everyone was just like, "What the hell? This is fetishy. This is full on. This like you're over sexualizing Harley Quinn here, who's
Different
a very
vibes.
And then she like her and Nightwing, who's her hostage, get it on. And people were like, "Is this consent?" Because Nightwing does he give consent? And it's like if you watch the scene, it's like it's implied consent. But then a lot of people are like, "No, he needs to like, this scene is demented." But that's a whole other thing, to be honest with you. It's not a very good movie. Like outside, like that scene notwithstanding, it's just not very good. And one of the things in it that really put me off was that there's a bit where Batman, Nightwing, and Harley's in the back of the Batmobile, and she's just sitting there, and then she just lets rip. She just lets a fart out, and then both Batman and Nightwing are like, "Jesus!" Like probably, "Oh my god!" Like, and at that moment, I remember seeing that for the first time, and been like, "Oh god!" Like, come on, is this what we've descended to? Little knowing that mere years later, I will be talking about the Harley Quinn fart
I was
comic.
gonna say I'm starting to see a theme, which makes me think like, what's going on here? What's up with the farting now?
But I also found as well, because in that, that's why I couldn't remember Lake Bell earlier, because in my mind I had Paget Brewster, who was in she remember in Friends when Chandler was cheating on Joey's girlfriend. But,
God, you're taking me back a while here. I can't remember that far.
That's one of the classic arcs of Friends. Where like, Chandler betrays Joey by like didn't love it. But Paget Brewster was Kathy, I think her name was.
Oh yeah.
That was her. She voices Poison Ivy in it. And if you look into what we'll be getting into in a moment, the James Joyce love letters.
Girl, I have it written out right here in my notes. I was shook.
I haven't looked this up because I wanted to ask this on air. Because I imagine some listeners might have the same question. Are these real?
They are 100% real.
What?
And there's so much more to them.
They're real. He actually said these words.
But also you can get on YouTube from years ago, like 10 years ago, Paget Brewster reading out a random video. It's like it's for Funny or Die or someone. There's a whole other conversation about that though, because those are 100%. In the words of Terry Hatcher in Seinfeld, they're real. And they're spectacular.
You know what, though? My reaction, I feel a bit bad about that in a way, because these were private, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And obviously I'm only reacting because now they're public. And they shouldn't be public, really. They were never intended to be public.
Yeah, the private correspondence between him and... at the time, I was like, I wonder if they brought in James Joyce just because his wife was called Nora. And it would tie into Mr. Freeze. And they're like, oh, Nora. But I think it is more than likely, I think that this comic was birthed from people in a writer's room talking about, have you ever come across the James Joyce, love letters? Oh, wouldn't it be fun if we could work them into like, and then somehow they constructed this story around it or something, because but yeah, they were written in private between him and his wife. And then someone years after his death, going through their house, found them hidden in a book. And then in 1974, they're like, let's publish them. That's
mortifying. A bit strange. Yeah, publishing them. Because, again, it was private. And things you say in private, they're not all intended for public consumption,
Yeah. It's one of those ones, too, that, like, you can openly get them anywhere. And they are wild. Like, there's a lot of fart talk. But it goes beyond that. It's very, you think of people in the black and white days, as I like the sepia days.
Oh, they're all prudish then. Yes,
they're all
no sex was occurring.
No sex at all occurred between the dinosaurs and 1960, as far as I'm aware. But like no, they were fetishy as hell.
Wow.
Back then.
I'll tell you what, as well, because it's to his wife, kind of sweet.
Yeah, totally. It's like there is an adulation of her in those letters. Where
he worships her. That's nice. He's a wife guy, as we say these days.
Yeah. It's so it's really nice that James Joyce had that going, and it's like, but what they're presenting in this though, like the openness of here are all the letters on display. It's like, don't put them on display. But I also feel like I would be very. You have to fight that temptation, don't you? Because like now that I'm fully aware of them. If James Joyce is ever brought up in a conversation, I'm going to be like, well, do you know about his letters to his wife and stuff? Like it's one of those scandalous details. It's going to be hard to get past.
Is that the new Irish thing of like your dad constantly telling you about Kirsty MacColl dying in a speedboat accident? Anytime she comes up, you have to be told that information. It's like, yes, I know. Yes.
I guess it will. Although, how often does James Joyce come up and
well, yeah.
Every Christmas, Fairy Tale New York gets played, so people will talk about Kirsty MacColl, and then you can go like, "Hey, did you know she got beheaded in a speedboat accident?" Brittany, did you know that Kirsty MacColl, the singer, was beheaded in a speedboat accident? It's back in the late 90s.
This sounds familiar, but now I know again because James Joyce. This fact, I swear I knew it, but I didn't know it. So when I read it, I was like, "Wait, this can't be true," and then I Googled it. And then I was like, wait, is this true? And then, like you guys said, the intimacy of these letters being shared with us, it just feels like so inappropriate. But I will say, if I can read this one line, this is the only line I can read because it's the only PG part of this whole letter. He says, I think I would know Nora's farts anywhere. And I think I could pick hers out in a room full of farting women. And I was like, is this romance? Is this romance?
It kind of is beautiful in a way.
It's so weird, though, because James Joyce is regarded as, like, one of the literary greats.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if people are all that familiar with his work. It's more that it's, like, it's difficult work. Like, it's, it's not casual. It's not Stephen King. This is like, proper, like, no, James Joyce is, like, you have to be, like, an academic to read his stuff. The theme. I just coincidentally, earlier in the week, came across an article about a book club in America. It's like, yeah, after 30 years, they finally finished their first book. And it was, they had been reading Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce one page at a time.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this. I thought that was so cute.
Yeah, and they finally finished it, and they're like, oh, it was like, every page is like, you have to decipher what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's full tilt, like, it's experimental literature. It's, it's one of these things that's like, a lot of people, I think I mentioned it to one of my friends, and she was like, oh yeah, I remember talking about my husband's friend one time. He did his thesis on Finnegan's Wake, and when he finished it, he said it was the biggest waste of time he'd ever done. He felt like he'd wasted his life trying to decipher Finnegan's Wake because he's like, it's indecipherable, which then is a whole other thing about, like, I suppose you could say it's like almost like surrealist art, where it's just like, well, is it... if it means nothing, then what intrinsic worth does it have?
But sometimes the attempt to decipher something is the interesting part, rather than what the conclusion is.
Well, that was the nice ending to that article about them finishing the book. They're like, oh, so what book have you got lined up next? I'm like, oh, we're going to do Finnegan's Wake again. Like, we really enjoyed talking about, like, trying to work out what's going on. This time we'll crack it, like, see you in 30 years kind of thing.
Well, I think Joyce is sort of a stream of consciousness sort of writer, and I've read thousands of books, but for some reason I skipped his. I never read it. So, but his name, his references, and so I think that's sort of what's interesting about art is that you could get lost in an artist's work for 30 years and then some, and I think that's what's beautiful about sort of being a creative. But I will say, behind every creative is a kink.
Yeah. I really think you're about to say, like, behind every good creative is a good woman. Like, behind every good creative
well, that too. A farting woman, apparently.
Yeah, true.
I do also, like, I know now we've gone about like, oh, the letters are private, and I know you've been very respectful there, Brittany. You've been like, I'll read the PG part. Mm-hmm. But there's part of me, because of the Mr. Freeze Nora connection, that wants to do like a reading of Arnie as Mr. Freeze, going like, yes, I would know her, my Nora. I would know her farts in any room anywhere.
Hey, I think there's nothing disrespectful about that.
Yeah,
these are already public now. You're not, people could just find them online.
That, and then, or do like the Batman animated series, Mr. Freeze, like the very serious Mr. Freeze, like, Nora, I would know flatulence.
We'll do a take as each, and we'll put them up, and you can decide which is best.
Bonus episodes for this, as will be full reading of James Joyce's love letters in both an Arnie and side. Like, I feel now that the spirit of Arnie has been invoked. I don't know if you would have seen Brittany. It might mean as much to you because obviously you grew up in America. Mm-hmm. But Arnie posted the other day on Instagram, him, Danny DeVito, and former Prime Minister Tony Blair, just hanging out. And he's like, yes, my good friend, my brother Danny, and my good friend Tony Blair. And it's just like, Arnie hungs at Tony Blair. What the hell is going on?
That is pretty wild. But I suppose he was in politics. Did he meet him then? I guess he probably would have done.
I suppose, yeah. Well, maybe he was around during, like, the Governator was early to mid 2000s. So Tony Blair, the New Labour, was there until like 2008.
If there wasn't overlap in real time, I mean, Tony Blair, when I was coming up, when I was a younger person, was like the person in politics at the time. So that's why I would know him. And then, yeah, I think they would have had overlap just in general. I mean, that's like kind of the irony about these communities. They have overlap even if they're across oceans.
Yeah, that makes sense. And because, like, where was Arnie in charge of? California?
Yeah, California.
And isn't that basically like, it's basically like a country with its power
it
and
really
its
is.
money. And
yeah,
stuff.
we're like the 6th largest economy, I think, or something like that. Like we're very in the world. Like California is its own economy. Yeah.
So that makes sense that, the prime minister over here would meet with the governor of California. Yeah, that kind of works.
I like this idea now, though, that, like, because Arnie's still, I listened to him on Mark Maron, like, a year or two back. He's still very politically active. He's still very politically intelligent. Like, Arnie really knows his stuff.
And he went vegetarian for his health.
Yeah.
And apparently he's all green now.
Yeah.
He's had his Hummers changed to be green.
It's, again, in the middle of talking about a fart comic, that sounds like some sort of euphemism, John. His Hummers are now green.
I will tell you
Hummer
this.
sounds like a fart,
I recently went plant-based myself, like a few months ago, and so I've seen him in documentaries about going plant-based or vegan or vegetarian or whatever. And I will say the bloating is no joke, but eventually it subsides. I'm like so anti-farting that I hate it. Even when I do it, I'm like, this is so frustrating to me. But you gotta fart, girls. It's for your health.
You're right, though. When you make that switch, even just to vegetarian, there is that initial phase. Don't get put off, people. There's the initial phase where your guts are kind of all over the place. You're
really,
like, wow, should I stick with this? Yes, stick with it.
Yes, stick with it. Yeah. And I feel great now. I will say now that I'm months in, and I did it because, I'm going through a whole, is it ethical to eat animals / consume other conscious life? And I've been thinking about it, but I will say I feel great. And so that alone is worth it.
Oh, that's really terrific to terrific to hear. I know. You're very open and documenting your journeys to these things, Brittany. So I'm always just like, we'll see what's.
Especially as a chronically ill person, I'm always trying to mess with my diet to figure out what will make my fibromyalgia feel a little bit better every day. Another reason not to hold in your farts is like it does hurt your tummy and it hurts everything. So just to swing it back around.
It's the classic episode of South Park with the spontaneous combustion. Where people throughout the episode are just spontaneously combusting, and then Stan's dad, Randy, everyone knows who Randy is in South Park. I don't know why they'll explain who he was. He investigates and he discovers it's because it's all men holding in their farts around women.
Hilarious.
And because of that, then the buildup of methane, just erupts and everything. But two things I should say as well is that the first time I thought about Arnie and Tony Blair meeting, those two guys meeting up, probably sharing cigars, talking politics, and then poor Danny DeVito was just there, just like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't know anything about that. I wasn't a politician.
He's just sat on his phone in the corner.
I used to be a barber, for Christ's sake. Like, I guess barbers actually would hear a lot about politics, to be fair.
True.
I feel like it's hard to go ananywhere without your twin.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. That's why I thought maybe they were finally doing that triplets movie they keep talking about. Because wasn't it originally Eddie Murphy? It's like, nah, we've switched it to Tony Blair.
We've gone in a very new direction with this.
They keep threatening that film.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just like you don't have to. Like, no
I feel like this is such a millennial conversation. Is Gen Z even going to understand that joke I just made about twins? Like,
although I recently, I think during our Batman and Robin season, I rewatched Twins, and I never realized that Heather Graham was their mum in it.
Oh yeah.
It was a flashback at the start. Yeah, it's Heather Graham. But also I will say I did, in trying to look up some of the stuff about eproctophilia, there's because when you're talking about like healthy eating and stuff there, Brittany, it reminded me. I did read a brief interview with some random people who are into it, on menshealth.com.
Oh.
And they were like just going in and said, well, let's just discuss like why are you into this? And they, to be fair to those guys, like they were very articulately trying to go like, well, I just like this about it and just like that about it. But the one thing I did note, and again, like you've been in the scene, Brittany, so you've probably seen this, that, and the other. But those guys are very emphatically at one point they're going like, so is this in any way related to like scat play? And they're always like, no.
Very different.
Very different. They're like, never the twain shall meet kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's we're going into then where it's like,
see, very different, but in my head adjacent, and so therefore no.
Yeah.
You know, but like, yeah, very different.
But it's also weird. This episode, I don't know if we're going to be able to like we'll have to bleep like half of it basically, but because we get into things like golden showers are much more mainstream. Whereas like this almost feels like we're talking about like a dangerous underground comic here, where it's like the scratch and sniff fart comic. Whereas something like golden
Batman,
showers
it always
like,
brings you the really down and dirty, rough, hard to find comics.
From our coverage of the children's cartoon Static Shock. We swung into this. Batman knows just like we don't know what we're doing, basically what our vibe is. But yeah, I just found some interesting things as well, because not only the basics of the plot is Ivy accidentally lets one out in front of Harley. Harley wants to win her back, and is trying to find a romantic gesture to do so. There's a bit where she stabs a guy in the neck with an ice cream cone and draws blood.
Oh, I loved that. So as an ice cream aficionado as well, this would be my weapon of choice if I was like a villain.
And it's more like, it doesn't matter how strong she is. It's like the integrity of the cone wouldn't stand. Like it would just crumble on the guy's neck. Like it's. I
know it makes no sense, but the visual of it is incredible. And it's exactly what, when people litter as well. I hate littering. I hate it.
Same.
I want to do this to people. And I love where I live. I love my street and that. But it's always covered in litter. And it's always right outside my goddamn house. I think they know I hate it.
I think it's also the millennial thing of having growing up with Captain Planet and the Planeteers.
Ugh,
yeah.
True.
Like
this generation need a Captain Planet. I'm saying that. I don't even know if it's kids. I think it's older people.
It is. It's everybody. I don't know why people litter. It actually drives me crazy too. It just brings down the mood for everything. Like what Miyazaki film and a great anime field and flowers also has like a pile of trash next to it. No trash. Trash is not the vibe. I will say, okay, the ice cream scene was interesting, but I actually have a favorite part of the comic in terms of like the humor. I was laughing. I want to hear your guys's, but the scene where they're talking, but they're fighting Batman at the same time. And I was like, I love the idea of them fighting and having like a lover's quarrel while they're literally kicking Batman's ass. And I'm like, what is this?
It's amazing that, isn't it? I love it. And then Batman ends up saying something that really sort of gets to Ivy. About, where's the line? He says, I don't care what you do with your bodies as long as it isn't against the law. And then her comeback is, men make the laws. Knees him in the face.
That's also a very coded... Well, even at that, though, there's so much even going on in those panels where, like, the way Ivy's drawn, again, we get a butt shot. Which, but when she's kneeing him to the chin, and her whole
she looks
outfit,
like a wrestler there. It's great.
She's very Uma Thurman kind of coded in that outfit. That got a very Uma Poison Ivy outfit. But beyond that also just makes you think too of like, not to get into the whole is Batman a fascist kind of argument, but like him saying, I don't care what you do with your bodies to two women as long as it's not against the law.
Yeah, why is Batman acting like he doesn't break the law sometimes? Like, this man breaking the law. Why is he acting like he's better than us?
His whole deal is breaking the law. It's like, no, there's no way that rocket car is sanctioned, dude. Like, you are breaking the law.
In his mind, it's justified because of the use.
But,
which it's not, obviously, because it is still against the law. But he's like, no, but it's for good, though. It's for good, though.
And it always makes you think, though, about him. Is Batman keeping up to date on the laws and stuff? Like...
Does he decommission some of his stuff if laws change?
Is Batman? Is like what's his views on? Is he pro-choice? Like what's his Because then he's been like, well, technically that's against the law, and I'm supposed to be upholding the law.
That's a good point.
And we had there's a comic we covered back in Batman and Robin where because there's a comic that featured Poison Ivy, where we call him the Jason Woodward, the Floronic Man, wanted to poison Gotham into being sort of just a lot more complacent by just pumping weed out into the air.
Ooh, I mean, kind of vibes though.
Yeah. And the thing was, at the end of it, like Batman and Robin have a big fight because Dick Grayson smoked some pot, and he's devastated about it. And Batman's really like, no, it's against the law. We're getting rid of all this stuff. It's like, it's marijuana, man. Who cares? And at the end, him and Jim Gordon are like they're burning all the evidence on top of the GCPD. And there's a big cloud going out over the city. And Gordon's just like, well, since we've been doing this, crime's gone down, man. People,
oh my God.
People aren't as angry.
But it's against the law.
And Batman's like, no, yeah, exactly. It's against the law. But Gordon's like, yeah, but like there's less hit and runs and stuff. There's there's no violent, spontaneous crime because everyone's just a bit chiller and stuff. It's like, seems to be working.
Yeah, because something is the law. It doesn't make it moral or correct.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Exactly.
And that's what I liked about this. The way it's kind of implied that they're maybe talking about other things.
Well, that's what I mean,
line.
too. That exchange of, like, as long as what you do with your bodies isn't against the law, and then her saying, men make the laws. Men make the laws. And we're in the aftermath of the repeal of, Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's that's a very, like, we're not outwardly saying it, but it's just there for you, to interpret.
We are saying it, but we're not saying it.
Yeah, they're not invoking, like, the prime word in that conversation, but it's also there. It's doing it in the Seinfeld way of, like,
right.
You can't, it's not a pizza until it comes out of the oven. All that.
Say on that note, before we move on to something else, I will say I think people sometimes take the wrong messages when we watch shows or movies, or I always wonder, like, when people watch a film, do they think they're the good guy or the bad guy, or like whose side do they think they're on?
Yeah.
And I always wonder that, especially I like that the idea of this comic having this conversation is about something bigger. Because I do think we should deconstruct why we're icked out by farts or anything else. I think we should deconstruct why a bodily function might make us feel like we can't talk about that. I don't want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be talking. Like, I think all of that is really good, but I do think it's about something a little bit more important than a fart. But we start with the farts because, you would think it's not that big of a deal, but there are lots of people who have yet to have these conversations or have yet to feel trapped in their own marriages because they can't fart. Like, we should be talking about these things, but we should be talking about so much more. So I do like the subtle implication that it's about more than just the farts, which actually goes back to that Sex and the City reference. The whole episode, Carrie's worried her relationship with Big is being threatened and she's blaming the fart. But at the very end, as she argues with Samantha, she's like, I know it's not about the fart. I know it's not about the fart. Like, obviously we know it's not about the fart. It's about the bigger conversation about communication, consent, and the larger conversation about our bodies and how we present in the world ultimately. So that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, the fart's the trigger.
Yeah.
To then make you discuss and talk about other, it could be any kind of a body issue. It could be about communication. It could be about consent. It could be about other bodily functions as well. It could be about like periods and things like this.
Sure.
And again, too, like it's not as if this is new to DC comics, because, like, I don't know if you're aware, Brittany, but like the character of Wonder Woman is like entrenched in her creation in bondage fantasy. Yeah,
I know the origination of the Marstons, the people who created it, not only poly and queer, but and professors, but into BDSM and kink, and it showed in the comics. And from my limited understanding, you guys can correct me, I believe Wonder Woman was actually taken off the shelves too because it was so offensive to the American public, and then put back on the shelves because of the whip in the kink elements of the comic. I believe
100%.
The whip makes a lot of sense when you know that. You're like, okay. Yeah.
And again, though, then, like, a couple of decades later, you get Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in all latex with a whip and doing it, just going to town with the stuff.
Look, even the president of the United States, who I'm not a fan of, obviously a horrible person, he himself has allegedly engaged in water sports. So, I mean, everybody's kinky.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, sometimes we should talk about it more, but then maybe sometimes the idea of not talking about it allows it to exist in a different space. It's always about like privacy versus, normalization, but we should normalize the fact that human beings have evolved to be kinky. We like our kinks.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
that doesn't mean you have to openly talk about it with your friends and family, but you know.
there's a curious thing that people are wondering already, because we have an upcoming Fantastic Four movie with Vanessa Kirby as Susan Storm, and in the comics, Susan Storm has an alter ego. She goes evil at one point. And it's supposed to be all her darkest impulses. And that outfit she wears when she's in her dark mode is just like, it's studded, it's black, it's revealing leather, it's very, very fetishy. And I think Vanessa Kirby has already said, like, well, I'm hoping we'll be able to get into stuff like that eventually with the sequels and stuff. But then there's also the thing of, like, because the Marvel movies, or people have pointed out, I feel like there's a cultural shift happening in that I've heard so recently that, like, Hollywood's become so sex negative that people are, like, I think we even talked about it during Poison Ivy. Like, when we're reviewing that, like, people are begging for a return of the erotic thriller. Because it's just like, let's just have things be sexy again. And you know, why can't we have that? Joel Schumacher wanted everything to be sexy. But then they're going like, well, the Marvel movies are very beefcake, because you're always getting these, like, hunky men. Which is also, then people would argue, like, yeah, but that's more for the male gaze as well, because they just want to see these hunky dudes too.
No, that's actually something that's come up this week as of recording, because there's a trailer for the new Grand Theft Auto game.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And the main character you play in that is like a beefcake dude, which is unlike that game. And he's like walking around with his top off and people did a post online. I can't remember who it was. You know, some jerk journalist was like, "Oh, this is a game that's not made for straight men. Look at this." And people had to point out to him, "No, this is for straight men.
Yep.
Straight men want this." And then people used examples of, like, magazine covers where Hugh Jackman was on the front on, like, Men's Fitness. He's there ripped and, like, raw, you know. And then on, like, a women's magazine, he had, like, a nice shirt on. He was, like, holding a dog or something.
Yep.
And he looked really nice.
I've seen so many. I don't know if you can speak to this, Brittany, but I've seen so many women on, like, Instagram and Reels and stuff saying that, like, oh, they love a dad bod. They love, they love a bit of a gut. They love, like, they're like, yep, that's what I'm. They like a guy now himself going through a kind of not a non-cancellation. David Harbour, who recently was, like, caught cheating on his wife. And,
yeah, but somehow got, like, the public were just like, okay, cool.
Everybody's just out promoting Thunderbolts as if, like, it's nothing. It's like, Blake Lively's getting flayed alive over in the corner, but, like, David Harbour's getting, like, no one's talking about it.
That's the thing. You know, what he does in his private life, it's got nothing to do with me, but it's the double standards that's the issue.
Yeah.
But David Harbour is, I know to some people, he's a sex symbol, and he is dad bod. He's like, yeah, guys, obviously he likes a beer. And he's not, you know, I think nowadays they've kind of whipped him into a Marvel shape because he's in the Marvel movies. But, like, back when Stranger Things...
You've got to be buff then, even if it doesn't fit your character.
Yeah, but when Stranger Things started, that was his, he had a gut. And he was just like, yeah, that was lovable David Harbour. And people love that guy. So, and then there's, like, all these things of, like, Hugh Jackman having to dehydrate himself so he can have his veins popping up to play Wolverine.
It's for men.
It's for men.
Yeah.
It's for men.
And mostly straight men.
Yeah, because they're like, yeah, that's power. It's...
Yeah, speaking from the very, like, binary man and woman heterosexual dynamic, there is, like, obviously it's not a monolithic experience. We all have different ways of being attracted or not. And what is gender really? It's such a social construct. But I will say there is sort of... that I think what you just said, where Hugh Jackman's shirtless for the men and then maybe holding a dog for the women, that is so true. Like, all my brothers who love Marvel, all of them are straight, and all of them are like, dude, did you see how hot he looked in that film, bro? Look at his muscles. And I was like, yeah, the gayest things I've ever heard have come out of straight men's mouths, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of beautiful, though, in a way. I do like to see a sort of safe space for men to express, like, a sort of a desire to, you know, also want themselves represented in a sexy manner. Like, I actually, as a woman who sees this Harley Quinn comic, I do, like, I play No Suit Samus on Smash Bros because I feel like her bod be rocking, you know? She's got that six-pack, she looks good, her thighs be pop, you know? So I think for men and women, non-binary people, whatever, we do look at other people and we want sort of a dream aesthetic, and I think that's okay. And I think it's okay to want that dream aesthetic to look differently than the expectation.
Yeah.
So maybe
absolutely.
the sort of dad bod look, or, you know, whatever, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. obviously attracted to something for the way that the vibe makes us feel. I think it's so much more vibe based than we know it is because we haven't deconstructed gender and body and stuff. But I actually think that's why people get confused over the dad bod conversation. Like men will say, no, you're lying, you're coping. But the truth is that most of us end up being with people that are not rocking six packs, you know? And even myself, when I've tried to be like, I'm gonna get a six pack this year, I'm like, I like bread too much. Let's go be for real. Like, let's be so for real. The
Yeah.
six pack itself is what you, like you said, is the dehydration. It's the starvation. It's the, you know, for a lot of people, we're not gonna do that. We're just like not gonna work out and eat only vegetables. We're gonna enjoy our life. And so it kind of feels silly to sit here and think that all people want six pack abs. That's the fantasy. The six pack is the fantasy. You know?
Well, that's the thing, and I think sometimes people confuse the two. Like, just because you have a fantasy of something, not necessarily even in a sexual way, in any way,
right.
It doesn't mean you necessarily want that.
100.
You know, in your life, it's just well, that's a fantasy though. That's like separate.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Actually,
which
I
you
think that's a
might
great
want,
point.
but you might not. You know?
Yeah. I think people really underestimate imagination, and we love to imagine. Like, we love story and lore and like, so I think that's just such a great point, is that it's not even about sexuality or intimacy. It's about the same thing. You watch a hero movie and you want to be the hero. It's not because you actually want to live out your daily life saving old ladies, you know, from traffic stops or saving kitties from trees. It's just you love the fantasy of whatever that gives you, whatever the satisfaction of the fantasy is, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like as a video game person, I would play back in the day, Guitar Hero. And people would say, well, why don't you just play a real guitar? I'm like, well, that's different. Like I don't play, I don't know, a first-person shooter. I don't play Call of Duty because I want to join the military.
Right. No, great point. Same. Yeah,
They're
I think I've
different
heard
things.
the same thing. I think that's such a good example. But I think that's why I want people to think about, why do we enjoy it in this form and not in another? Like, actually, because I'm not so much of a video game person, sometimes my viewers will be like, Brittany, you should game. And I was like, you guys play games where you're like going to work and making money and having a family. I'm just doing that in real life, but I love that for you. And like, that's the joke, is like, I do that in real life because I love to work and I love to like create. And so
I love games like that though. Like
Yeah.
Shenmue is one of my favorites. You have to go and get a job down at the docks and
Oh
the
my God.
forklift.
hilarious.
This sounds to me like in the U.S. office with like Dwight creating an avatar in Second Life, which was exactly like his actual life. I was like, yes,
love
he's
that.
exactly like me in every way except he can fly. And that was
That's
the
it.
only-
Yeah. That actually inspired me to play Second Life
Really?
and try and do it in a similar fashion. You know.
That's so great.
You can still play it now, listeners. It's still on the go.
Yeah. But so that's gonna so 'cause beyond the curiosity of the James Joyce letters, in the background in the comic, they do. It's almost as if they're kind of defending the comic for existing, about like the portrayal of farts in art, because again, back in the black and white days, this also happened, and they make reference to it in the background in the panels, because you see a mention of higasen, which is apparently a Japanese art form depicting farts. Higasen or hohigasen. I know I'm mispronouncing that. I'm so sorry.
No, that was pretty close. That was pretty. As the resident weeb, I should know about this. What's going on?
It's like their titles given to a Japanese art scroll created during the Edo period by an unknown artist or several unknown artists depicting flatulent humor. And it is all like literally like the cover of this book. It's people bending over and shooting like a geyser of gas at people. And it's like higasen is a subject occasionally depicted in Japanese art, first attested at the end of the Heian period. Tuba Shuho, in addition to his famous scrolls of frolicking animals, is also mentioned as having painted scrolls on themes such as phallic contest and higasen. So we all have a range. We could go from painting nice animal pictures to like people farting on each other. It's...
Yeah. Well, as an artist yourself, you understand now.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Look, people are people everywhere. So if one community has it, the other community has it. There's always in I think that's what's so interesting about sort of when people sit there and be like, my culture is better than your culture. Guys, we all have overlap. Trust me. If it's in this culture, it's in that culture. Don't even start to compare, because it's all the same. People are people everywhere.
Well, to speak to that, they also have in the background of one of the panels a mention of the performer Le Petoman, who is, I thought like, oh, this must be like it's a painting or something. It's like, oh no, it's way more than that. Le Petoman was the name of a stage performer who was called Joseph Pujol, who was a French flatulist, which is a professional fartist. And he was quite famous back in the day. You can get an old movie of him, because this is like he was born 1857, died 1945, so it's back in the day. But they're like, oh, here's him at the Le Pitoman du Moulin Rouge. At the Moulin Rouge, you can see this guy. But it's a silent movie, and you're like, you could be doing anything. It's a guy standing on stage, like bending over, and then people clapping, and you're like, I don't know what's happening there. But yeah, this is really, the more I looked into him, the more interesting his story became. Because it was a common misconception that Pujol passed intestinal gas as part of his stage performance. Rather, he was allegedly able to inhale or move air into his body and then control the release of air with his sphincter, basically.
No, that's actually impressive, as disgusting as it is.
Yeah, so mentions here that he was born in Marseille, one of 5 children, and then he left school and had a strange experience while swimming in the sea. He put his head under the water and held his breath, whereupon he felt an icy cold penetrating his rear. He ran ashore in fright and was amazed to sense water pouring back out.
What?
And then while serving in the army, he told his fellow soldiers about his special ability and repeated it for their amusement, sucking up air from a pan into his rectum and then projecting it. Sucking up water from a pan into his rectum and then projecting it across several yards. And then he discovered that he could suck in air as well. And that was his act. Was like he would just go, and apparently he could like imitate musical instruments with it. He apparently when he was working as a baker, he would like to entertain people. He would like hide behind the desk and then just like let out air, but making it sound like different things. So people, he's like the guy in Police Academy who would do all.
I was about to say he should be in a movie.
He could do all the instead of doing all the impressions, like the vocal impressions. This guy he can imitate a guitar with his butt, which is like. I'm kind of like, you just wouldn't get that guy. He's not showing up on X Factor or anything like that, or Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent. But I'm also like, it's a legit skill though. If you could do that, nowadays you have YouTube. Other people
just imagine if men didn't wage war and they waged farts instead. Just imagine if we actually paid all these skills that are going, undiscovered.
I think
They're too busy fighting.
I think that's the title of the episode right there, Brittany. What if when they wage war, they wage farts instead?
There's a skill in this that the only bit I found gross, which maybe you're the same, Niall. I'm not sure, because you did mention earlier there was one bit you found gross, but I don't know if you touched on it. The only thing I was like, oh god, it's when. How do I even word this? It's when. She's wearing what's his face as a suit? Me and names.
Plastic Man.
She's wearing Plastic Man, and she farts, and he can taste the pizza.
Yes.
Through her fart gas.
That was the exact panel where he's like, she has to release some, and he's snorting it out his nose, and he's got a little smile, and he's going like, "Oh, the pickle pizza ain't bad." And it's like no. But that also feels like the peak of like, if this is a fetish comic, that was. The peak of someone been like the whole thing of Plastic Man. He's done that before. Where Plastic Man's such a weird character.
He's done that before.
He's like posed as people's clothing before.
Yeah.
For comedy,
which is weird enough. That's fetishy anyway.
Like everything about his section, I feel that's peak fetishism. Or not? Well, I should also say too.
Maybe it's a parody of the way a man would write it. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I should also point out too, Brittany, because I think I learned this from you, Brittany, that there's a difference between a kink and a kink is something that you just mildly into. A fetish is a thing that you like require. Like
so like the kink is something that turns you on, and a fetish is something you need to finish.
Yeah. So
it's kind of mandatory. But I will say along those lines, men have made jokes about smelling each other's farts and like knowing what you ate the day before. And so I know there is sort of a group of people that are kind of like skilled in deciphering like, what you might have eaten in your diet. And I'm just sitting here like, this is not my bubble. This is not my thing.
No. Although pickle pizza's nice. I actually only heard of it a few weeks ago and I started making it and it was very nice. I didn't know it was a thing. I watched a YouTube video about a pickle festival.
Oh, there you go.
And they had pickle pizza and they had pickle lemonade, though. That was too far. I was like, no.
Well, people drink pickle juice, right? Like people like to drink the jar of pickle juice, I think.
That's very Eastern European. And also, it seems like a lot of people in America do that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like insane.
No.
Maybe it is nice. I've not done it. It could be nice.
I don't know. I've never done it either.
I've only got into pickles in like maybe the last 2 or 3 years. I would never have touched them.
No, I hated them as a kid. I hate it. It's not. It's very, over here. They're not beloved.
Although I will say, John, as well, this is a point of contention between us in the past where I like olives, you despise olives, but like
I hate them.
But how different are olives from pickles? Like,
okay, first of all, they're very different. As an Assyrian myself, like as a Middle Eastern person, they're very different. But I will say dill pickles better than big pickles. I can't. When people eat the big pickles, I'm like, how? I'm all about the little pickles because they snap. I'm a very texture based eater. So like
I'm into the little ones too. What do you call them here? Cornichon. We call them here. We use the French name. They're like little ones. I got a giant one. It was the little
pickles. I got a giant one.
But to try it, I got a giant one in a bag. Actually, our guest of the show, Ash Lurchek, he gave me this because he didn't want it because he had one and hated it. So he was like, "I've got these in the fridge. Do you want them?" And it was a giant pickle, and there were a couple of different ones. There was like just dill, and then there was one that's like spicy and all this kind of. I did not like them. I did not. There was something weird about the pickle juice. I don't know if it's different to what the French ones have. These were American. I don't know if it's different pickle juice or it's just the giant pickle itself ruining the flavor. I don't know.
I was saying, because I only got into them recently. I can't say that the Co-op in England, they do a great little pickle just because the brine they put it in is like flavored with like mustard seed and stuff like that. And it's like,
I love those. Yeah, that's good.
Really, really terrific. But like when I saw pickle pizza, I did go like, ugh.
Oh no, try it, man! Try it. Honestly,
I thought they made it up for this to be like let's try to think of like the most disgusting thing she could eat was pickle pizza.
Well, I don't know if it is a real thing, but it was on this YouTube video at the Pickle Festival.
Yeah.
So they're doing weird products there. So I had a pizza in, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go and put some of those on. It was great.
I'll give it a go. We get like a margarita, and then it's like, go open a jar and see. Just try it one slice and see what happens. But,
do it.
Yeah.
But I love the way we took that in a nice direction after talking about how disgusting he was. Yeah.
Well, so I was like, what were we talking about originally? Oh yeah, the whole thing of Plastic Man wrapped around her, and like that got into like so. There's a friend of mine. She like her performer name is Faye Decay. And basically, she's now making a living as a fetish, like a fetish content creator. Great. She is like some of the things that I don't know into because she's my friend, so I'm just like I don't want to see what you're. Yeah,
it's awkward, isn't it? You want to support her, but you can't really partake.
Yeah, but I see the posts and like she does a lot of vor stuff.
Oh, great!
A lot of like giantess stuff.
Love that.
And a lot of the sort of like that's all. I've never seen the stills I've seen. It's never like a mainstream kink. It's always like, oh no, I'm delving into like the weirdest stuff possible, and she's making a living doing it. She's like,
well, because you wouldn't make a living if you did the mainstream.
Well, yeah, I thought you would.
And also, she might just enjoy it more.
She might just enjoy it more. But it's but yeah, some of the scenes with Harley walking along as if she's in like one of those fake sumo suits. But it's Plastic Man wrapped around her containing all the methane inside. That looked to me like something she would be in. Like, that's the kind of like, oh yeah, it's that kind of like, it made me think that's a very particular fetish. That someone would have something like, oh, imagine being in like a tight suit and filling with your gas. And then the fact that his face is on her butt as well, it's just very like, this really seems like, oh, it was all cute before, but now it's like, let's just let it all. We're getting into it now, kind of thing.
There are two specific kink-related things to this. In the kink scene, it's not that uncommon to do vacuum-sealed suits. So they put you in like rubber suits, and then they put a vacuum and they suck out all the air. So it's kind of the reverse of that, which is kind of funny enough. And then
that always scared me personally. I think I would feel too trapped. I don't know. Feeling trapped is the point, but I'd be like, ugh.
No. My claustrophobia I can't even handle elevators. Like, no, ma'am. So, and then the second part of this that reminds me of things is OF models who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars farting into jars.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Remember? So this is so, related. It's much more, it's weird that it's unique, but also much more common than you would think.
Yeah. I think it's I remember who was the one who got really famous because she was selling
Belle Delphine.
That was like selling bathwater and stuff. Yeah, it's
which I think it's an odd thing to buy, but at the same time, people were being mean to her for offering it. Why?
It's the novelty of things. Well, that's why we have to remember that human beings, we're like taboo like seekers, where we want the novelty, we want the new discovery, we want to do, even if we pretend we don't. There's something about you that you're seeking out that's like a little I think that's why there's such a correlation between people who used to be religious and like kink is like there's something inherently kinky about giving your whole life to somebody, getting down on your knees for a man, there's something, inherently kinky about all of the things that
it's very submissive.
Yes, it is. It's
other thought I had as well, but it's like it might be too much of a tangent to go off, but in the James Joyce dream sequence, where, as I said, like my version of it seems like whatever happened on that page, like they spilled the chemical all over it or something. that section in particular reeks. But I guess it is a dream, but it's also because they have these editor's notes where they keep having to be like, we apologize to the estate of James Joyce for what we're doing. We apologize to the nation of Ireland for what we're saying, etc., etc. But yeah, he's down on his knees, like right up to her butt, trying to like get a sniff and stuff. And like I think now I've become that heightened to these things. I'm just like, dude, that's like bordering on like an assault almost, like to just be so openly getting off on someone you're talking to is farts.
Yeah.
That bit also made me Plastic Man, and then him doing that made me very unsettled. Where it's like, I guess it's in Harley's head, so it's not like a real guy's doing it. But also that would be like, if I was James Joyce's estate, I'd be like, maybe leave out that panel at least. Like, we can let everything else slide because he did do it, but like he did write those letters, and that's part of his legacy or whatever. But also don't have him up like in like a woman who hasn't given consent, him just having his face right up in her rear to like get a sniff and stuff. Like that just makes him seem like. Although like later on, when she decides I'm going to break in to steal the letters, and she goes like, I gotta go and get that perv's letters. That panel made me laugh just because she just the way she was openly go like, oh, that perv,
Well, and we need to bring up one other thing before we eventually wrap up. We need to bring up the character that's introduced then as well.
Oh yes, of course.
I believe she may be Dutch Oven.
Oh yes, yes.
Look, I'm looking forward to the gritty reboot of the Batman villain Dutch Oven
coming in the Batman 2.
Yes, he coming in and be like, I don't know, it's like Jesse Buckley is Dutch Oven.
That's why there's been such a delay with the movie. They've been trying to just get Dutch Oven right.
Yes, yeah. Although I guess we can't get an Irish, but you have to get like, who's a Dutch actress, like Alicia Vikander or someone will have to go in.
It's quite a character.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's fun. It's like a stereotype, but in like a fun way, not in a nasty way.
Yeah, the whole the reason she's Dutch is just like, well, we just wanted to make that joke.
Yeah. Well, initially, before you knew the name, I was like, well, why the hell is she Dutch? What's that got to do with anything? I didn't put the two things together.
It's very college humor, basically.
Yeah.
But again, I know that is a thing that I think couples do. Again, supposed to be for fun. Is the act of the Dutch oven of like putting the blankets over.
No, see, I don't mind farting around someone, but don't actively do that. And again, unless it's been discussed and it is agreed to be funny. I don't know.
Well, I knew a couple once, and the wife came to me for advice, and she said, Brittany, I'm so sick of it. My husband thinks it's funny. He keeps Dutch ovening me, and it's not funny, and it makes me not want to be with him intimately. And I said to him, you can make your decision right now. Are you going to go for jokes or intimacy? And he's like, but it's funny. And I was like, then do it to your boys.
Yes, okay? That's the thing. Like, okay, it's funny. It's funny to him.
Yeah.
But it's got to be funny to the person you're doing it to,
Well,
or it
look,
doesn't work.
he stopped doing it out of respect for everything, and so, it's all good now, but it is one of those things where like it might be funny temporarily, but it does bring down the mood, let me tell you.
I can imagine, because you're spending your life with someone, so you're gonna have these moments, and you want humor to be involved. Yes, but you still need to maintain some kind of an attraction there.
Well, also, I don't want to point any fingers, Brittany, but like he says, "Oh, it's funny." He could also be getting something else out of it. Like,
well, yeah,
it's like it's not just smelling. It could be like the inflicting of the Dutch oven,
like a control thing.
Yeah,
bringing it back to that sadism, and unless you've got a masochist, it's not really symbiotic. So you gotta make sure that it's symbiotic.
Yeah.
But as you alluded to there, John, and also because I don't want to keep Brittany here all day, even though like there's so many other things you could talk about in here.
There are.
We should in order to round up. We'll just hop to as we mentioned at the start, the very emotionally intelligent ending where Harley and Ivy make up.
Oh yeah, and she farts roses at the end there, Ivy. Genuinely, it's weirdly sweet.
But so Harley comes in, well, she's like dangling upside down outside the window. It's very cute. It's very Harley. Like we even get the whole the Harley Quinn. It's okay. I think part of the reason why people were so outraged by this is because Harley's kind of become overexposed as a character, and DC have tried to morph her into their Deadpool, and so people, I say people. Male comic fans don't like that. And I think a lot of people too. I do actually know a Harley cosplayer who despises modern interpretations of Harley Quinn because she's like, I like the Jester's outfit. I like the one from the 90s. That's Harley Quinn.
I get it. I mean, I personally prefer this sort of thing, but I also understand that approach.
Yeah. And I think you've still not seen Birds of Prey, John, but Birds of Prey. I don't know if you've seen Birds of Prey.
I'm behind. I'm behind on everything.
I saved it for the show, and then we never covered it.
Never covered it. That's this energy. Like Birds of Prey is the opening 30 minutes is all about Harley Quinn trying to get an egg sandwich. Like that's it's fun.
To fart.
And it was and people hated it when it came out, and I watched it and I was like, that was a really fun film. I don't know why you wouldn't.
I might watch it now because I did like this Harley a lot. I understand the original Harley and everything, but I think things need to modernize in a sense. I'm definitely on that camp.
I think you might have actually pitched it to you as a bonus episode before, because I think I would be genuinely really interested in what you think of, because it's entirely dealing with the concepts of female friendship, the portrayals of female characters, because Harley Quinn she's the quote unquote hero. She's an absolute asshole in it. And they're very open, and then the reaction of people to that have been like, well, a male anti-hero, people wouldn't bat an eye, but the fact that it's a woman, people were outraged by it. And it's also entirely about her actively leaving a top. You never see the Joker, but it's all about her leaving the Joker.
Okay. We should explore that.
Yeah, it's really. I would be fascinated to know what you think of Birds of Prey. It's a really underrated film. I think I look forward to. It's very Joel Schumacher influenced. I look forward to its renaissance. The only part of it...
We've been saying we're going to cover it for years.
Yeah, we should get to it sometime. Obviously now I do want to do it. If you'd be willing to come on for Brittany, then obviously we can't do it. Yeah. We can't do it straight away after just having you on. We'll have to leave a little gap, But we'll come back.
Yeah, sure.
If the people want more.
I'm open. Yeah, I'm definitely open.
But anyway, so the Harley then or Ivy drags in Harley through the window with her weeds. I just love this little exchange because Harley basically says I won't do the voice because it'd be really annoying, but I should have listened to how you were feeling. I should have respected that instead of trying to force my perspective onto you. I don't have to think the same or feel the same about everything, and even if I don't understand why you're upset, I should acknowledge that you are, because your feelings matter to me. And
it's actually good relationship advice.
Yeah. And then Ivy's just like, thank you, that's all I wanted. And there you go, the fight's over, and and now they're made up. And that's a really, you come to it like, oh, the people doing this, they know, again, it's they're professional writers, so they know what they're doing overall. But
that's that's deep thinking on about relationships, I think, because that's something some people don't always understand. I sort of see it myself. you can think different things. You're not a unit. Well, you are, but you're not one
Right.
person. Like you can have other interests separate. I think the best people are the ones who blend. Like, we've got these things in common, that's why we connect. But we also have our own things and our own feelings and thoughts. And, you're still separate people, but have come together as one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what stood out to me, I guess, in that regard, because I agree in my own relationship. It's like we're two individuals who have come together and we're spending life together, but we're very like our own people ultimately. And I think that's so important. And I did love the consent element of it all, because I've even had those conversations in my marriage, which is like, hey, can we discuss this thing that you as an adult who's had all these decades by themselves, I've had all my decades alone, like we formed habits and ideas and interests that we're now combining into one household. How do these things come together in a cohesive way? And you're going to have those moments. But I think Harley acknowledging Ivy's agency, her allowance to have her own opinion, her own limitations, is the point that even though Harley's comfortable with it, it doesn't mean Ivy is, and that's okay. And as long as we've deconstructed our why, like, why am I uncomfortable? It doesn't, ultimately, like, that's what's so beautiful about being cohesive with somebody. It's allowing them the agency to be themselves. And I think that's a really powerful message to end on, especially, I don't know if this is true or if this is just my impression of the comic bubble, but it feels, because it's so male dominated, it's kind of something that I think male people raised under patriarchy could kind of like learn to understand, that the people that you're with have their own tastes, have their own interests, and they are going to have differences from you, and that's okay. But it's about, and maybe girls who have internalized misogyny should hear it too, I suppose, that like, you don't have to be everything your partner is. Like, you guys are allowed to have differences, but it doesn't mean the relationship is bad or gonna end or not gonna be good enough, because the things you come together on are values. They're not like farts.
That's a
values.
weirdly fantastically sweet line.
Yeah. Yeah, and then correct me if I'm wrong.
That might have to be the title now.
Oh, perfect. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did I understand the ending correctly, that her whole farting issue ended up being just she's lactose intolerant?
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's all the pizza she's been eating and stuff.
We didn't even
She's
mention
not cursed at all.
the actual crux of the plot is that when she steals the letters, Dutch Oven tells her that, oh no, James Joyce was like a sorcerer. And basically now that means you're doomed to fart forever until I can take the letters.
Right, she's cursed. Yeah.
Because again, that to be fair, it does feel like the actual plot line was a bit of like an afterthought. Where they're like, I don't know,
hilarious
witchcraft or something.
No, but this is the perfect way to finish that plot off. To be like, nah, actually, that was all nonsense.
Yeah,
it's actually just the pizza and the cheese.
Oh, but yeah, the only thing I just wanted to mention before we wrap up is that, of course, we do get a little reference that I enjoyed to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, in that Harley is riding Plastic Man, I think, isn't it? She's on his shoulders going like, "Who run Fart Town?"
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, is a reference to the character of Master Blaster from Mad Max, which is like, I wasn't expecting to see that, but there we go.
No, that caught me off guard. I was like, oh, now I want to go on a Mad Max marathon.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to put a cork in it for this particular.
I have one question to ask before we go, though. One quick question, and this is very obscure. Is there a reference in this to the singer Tiny Tim? Because there's a line about tiptoe through the tulips, or was that already a song?
No, I think that is like, yeah, that tiptoe through the tulips. I think that is, that is a reference to Tiny Tim. That was when I saw it myself. I was like, oh, that must be what they're doing. Yeah, but I think he might have been.
I wish we could put that as the music for this episode, but we will probably get this.
Can't we, John? Can't we?
I would. No, I don't know. I would advise not.
You guys can sing it a cappella and then use it in the background.
I was about to say you don't want to hear me sing, but maybe that'll be the appeal.
Tie in with the Arnie reading the James Joyce letters. We could do Arnie singing "Tiptoe Through the Tulips."
There you go. That's it. On that bombshell, should we head off into the dark, stinky night?
Indeed.
Yep. Just thanks again, Brittany, for hopping on. You're always a great guest, and always just enjoyed talking to you. So.
My pleasure. I would just like to end it with a quote from Joyce himself. who said, "It is wonderful to F a farting woman when every F drives one out of her." Wise words. Wise words.
Absolutely fantastic. I actually think, like, genuinely now, edit this out. I think maybe we shouldn't even do an outro. Just go out on that. What do you think?
Whatever you think the fans
Or
will like.
I'll do an outro and then you can decide in the edit.
You have that just
Okay.
reading and the Tiny Tim's Tiptoe Through the Tulips coming in softly.
You guys will know.
Yeah,
Oh
that's what I
my
was
God!
thinking.
Wait, that would be perfect.
But if we do go with a normal outro, have you got anything you would like to promote or tell people about?
You know, if they're interested, they can come check out my live streams Monday through Friday over on YouTube. Brittany Simon. Every day we go over during the week trending topics and things that relate to philosophy through pop culture. So this is, kind of perfect. This really is philosophy through pop culture. What are the ethics around farting in a relationship?
Yeah, I didn't expect when we, put this episode together that it would go this way. And it's been 10 times better than I could have hoped. I thought, we'll just make some fart jokes for half an hour and that'll be it.
No, we did 2 hours, almost 2 hours of dissection here over farts. So I think we did pretty good.
Incredible. And as usual, people, check us out everywhere. Facebook, just look up Bat Minute. We're all over the place. And we are coming back very, 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 very soon. We're gonna start a new season soon. I mean, as of recording this, we haven't recorded it yet, but we are sorting it out. It's coming. It is coming. You may have seen I've been prepping certain things behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, people. Things are happening. Movement. It's occurring. Prepare yourselves. Gird your loins.
Yeah, no. Of course, you're welcome back for that as well. Brittany will be covering the Adam West movie next as well. So I don't know if you've seen the Adam West Batman movie, but if you have any minutes in particular you'd like to cover, just let us know.
I'm behind on so much, but maybe Birds of Prey too. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's something we can do.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I had something I was going to say as an outro, and I can't remember what it was. God damn it!
I will say also too, in terms of like people's interpretations of farts in different cultures. One of the things this really reminded me of, because trying to keeps calling them like toots to try to make it cute, And I remember my French friend Carly from the land of Les Potins, or Les Pétomans. Sorry, that was, what his name was. She introduced me to a song as they used to sing as children, and it just always opened with "Prout prout prout que je t'aime," and so she would always go like "Prout prout prout que je t'aime." And apparently that means fart, fart, fart. I love you so much.
Wow.
Apparently that's the thing that just the kids sing over there.
Beautiful.
Incredible. Absolutely
Poetic.
Amazing. Well, Niall, we're out of here.
We're up and disappeared
outro.
like a fart in the wind.
Like a fart in the wind. That's a good thing. Good. Good, bad. I'm flexible.
Wow. Nice.
Just came to me, that line he said. That's a good line he comes out with, to be honest. Pervy, but a good line. We'll be back.